Hey, welcome back. If you're new here, I'm glad you found this channel, but I have to warn you, what you're about to hear is not fiction. No jump scares, no made-up monsters. Just the cold, documented truth about something that happened in 1959 that has never, and I mean never, been fully explained. Tonight, we're diving into what many consider the most terrifying true mystery in modern history. This is the Dyatlov Pass incident, a true story. And by the end of it, I promise you'll be asking yourself one question that nobody has ever been able to answer. It's January 1959. The Soviet Union is in the middle of the Cold War. Life is hard, but for a group of young university students from the Ural Polytechnical Institute in Sverdlovsk, what we now call Ekaterinburg, life is full of adventure. These weren't reckless kids. These were elite hikers. Every single one of them held a Grade 2 hiking certification, the second highest in the Soviet Union at the time. Their leader, a 23-year-old engineering student named Igor Dyatlov, was assembling a team for the ultimate challenge, a Category 3 expedition through the northern Ural Mountains in the dead of winter. There were 10 of them at first, 8 men and 2 women. Young, experienced, excited. They had their route approved by the Sverdlovsk City Committee of Physical Culture and Sport. They had their diaries, their cameras, their dreams. They had no idea they were walking towards something that would haunt the world for decades. On January 23, 1959, the group departed from Sverdlovsk. They traveled by train to Ivdel, then by truck to a small village called Vizai, the last inhabited settlement before the wilderness swallowed everything. From Vizai, they hiked north. The plan was to reach a mountain called Otorten, a name, by the way, that in the local Mansi language roughly translates to "don't go there." Fitting, isn't it? On January 28th, one member of the group, Yuri Yudin, had to turn back. He was suffering from knee and joint pain. He hugged his friends goodbye, watched them disappear into the white horizon, and started the long walk home. He had no idea that he would be the only one who ever came back. The remaining 9, Igor Dyatlov, Zinaida Kalmogorova, Rustam Slobodin, Yuri Doroshenko, Georgy Krivonishenko, Alexander Kolevatov, Ludmila Dubinina, Nikolai Thibault-Brignoles, and the oldest of the group, 38-year-old Semyon Zolotaryov, pressed on into the mountains. On February 1, 1959, the group reached the eastern slope of a mountain called Kolet-Sayakal. In the Mansi language, that name means dead mountain. They were close to their goal, but the weather was turning. Visibility was dropping. Snowstorms were rolling in. A smart decision would have been to descend 1.5 kilometers into the forested valley below, where the trees would have given them shelter from the brutal wind and cold. But Igor Dyatlov made a different call. He didn't want to lose the altitude they'd already gained. So the group set up their large 9-person tent right there, on the open, exposed slope of Dead Mountain. That night, temperatures dropped to somewhere between -25 and -40 degrees Celsius. Wind speeds reached hurricane force. The mountain was alive with the sound of howling storms. And then something happened. Something so terrifying that 9 experienced, rational, well-trained hikers did the one thing that makes absolutely no sense. They sliced open their tent from the inside with knives and ran out into the killing cold. Not grabbing their coats, not grabbing their boots. Some of them were in their socks. Some were barefoot. One was in just his underwear. They ran, all 9 of them, into the darkness, into -40 degrees, away from everything that could have saved them. Back in Sverdlovsk, nobody worried at first. Expeditions like this often ran a few days late. But when February 12th came and went with no telegram from Dyatlov, the agreed check-in date, the families started to panic. By February 20th, the relatives demanded action. Search parties were sent. Students, teachers, then the military, planes and helicopters combing the frozen wilderness. On February 26th, they found the tent. The student who discovered it, Mikhail Sharavin, later said, and I'm quoting him directly, "The tent was half torn down and covered with snow. It was empty, and all the group's belongings and shoes had been left behind. The tent had been cut open from the inside. 9 sets of footprints led away from the tent, down the slope toward the tree line, about 1.5 kilometers away. Some prints showed people walking in socks. Some showed a single shoe. Some showed bare feet in the snow. After 500 meters, the footprints disappeared under fresh snowfall. At the edge of the forest, under a large Siberian pine tree, searchers found the first two bodies, Krivonyshenko and Doroshenko, shoeless, dressed only in their underwear, near the remains of a small fire. The branches of the pine tree were broken up to 5 meters high, as if someone had desperately climbed it, trying to see something, or trying to get away from something below. Between the pine tree and the tent, 3 more bodies were found: Dyatlov himself, Kolmogorova, and Slobodin. They were spread out across the slope, in poses suggesting they had been crawling back toward the tent, trying to return, before they collapsed and froze. 5 bodies, all dead of hypothermia. Tragic, yes. Mysterious, yes. But explainable, barely. Then came May, 2 months after the first discovery. Searchers found the remaining 4 bodies buried under 4 meters of snow in a ravine 75 meters deeper into the forest. And this is where the story stops being just tragic and becomes something else entirely. These 4, Dubinina, Zolotaryov, Thibault-Brignoles, and Kolevatov, were better dressed than the others. It appeared that clothing had been taken from the bodies of those who had already died and given to these 4. They had survived longer. They had tried harder. But what the forensic examination found on these bodies shook the investigators to their core. Thibault-Brignoles had massive skull fractures, not surface wounds, deep, catastrophic damage to the skull. Dubinina and Zolotaryov had severe chest trauma, multiple broken ribs, internal bleeding. The forensic expert described the force required to cause these injuries as comparable to a car crash. And yet, there were no external wounds, no bruises on the skin, no cuts, no marks, as if the force had come from inside or from something that left no trace. But that's not the worst part. Dubinina was missing her tongue, her eyes, part of her lips, facial tissue gone. Zolotaryov was missing his eyeballs. Kolevatov was missing his eyebrows. The forensic expert ruled these as post-mortem damage from the stream water. But investigators at the time and researchers for decades after have never been fully satisfied with that explanation. And there was one more detail that the Soviet authorities tried very hard to keep quiet: radiation. One victim's clothing tested positive for radioactive contamination. Not a huge amount, but enough to raise questions that have never been answered. So what happened on Dead Mountain that night? Over the past 65 years, dozens of theories have been proposed. Let me walk you through the most compelling ones. Theory 1, the avalanche. In 2020, Russian authorities officially concluded that a slab avalanche, a type where a dense layer of snow breaks loose and slides, startled the group awake and forced them to flee. Swiss scientists from EPFL and ETH Zurich published a computer simulation in 2021 supporting this. The theory is that the hikers' expertise actually doomed them, because experienced mountaineers know that when you hear an avalanche coming, you run. You don't stop to grab your boots. But here's the problem. Investigators found no avalanche debris. The footprints leading away from the tent showed people walking calmly, not running in panic. And the injuries on the 4 bodies found in the ravine were described as too severe to be explained by a snow slide alone. Theory 2, infrasound. Some researchers believe that the unique geography of the mountain created infrasound, low-frequency sound waves below human hearing, that can cause extreme panic, disorientation, and even hallucinations. Studies have shown that infrasound can make people feel an overwhelming, irrational need to flee. This could explain why 9 rational people ran into the cold without their clothes. Theory 3, military testing. The Soviet military was conducting secret weapons tests in the Ural region throughout the late 1950s. Some researchers believe the group may have witnessed or been caught in a test of some kind of pressure weapon or experimental device. This would explain the internal injuries with no external marks, the radiation, and the fact that the Soviet government sealed the investigation files for decades. Theory 4, the orange spheres. On the night of the incident, a separate group of hikers about 50 kilometers south reported seeing strange orange spheres in the sky to the north. These sightings were corroborated by the Meteorological Service and military observers over the following weeks. The 1959 investigation never mentioned them. They only came to light years later. Nobody has ever explained what those lights were. 9 experienced hikers, a mountain called Dead Mountain, a tent sliced open from the inside, bodies with internal injuries that match a car crash but no external marks, missing eyes, a missing tongue, radiation, orange lights in the sky, and a Soviet government that sealed the files for 30 years. The official conclusion? A compelling natural force. That's it. That's all they gave us. Now, here's the chilling question I want to leave you with, the one that truly haunts me. If the official explanation of an avalanche is true, then why were the files classified for decades? What were they hiding? Think about that. Let it sink in. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the unknown. If this true story sent shivers down your spine, if it made you question what we think we know, then please consider hitting that subscribe button. Your support helps me bring more forgotten, terrifying truths to light. The 9 hikers of the Dyatlov Pass were real people. They had lives, dreams, and futures. Whatever unspeakable horror they faced on Dead Mountain, they deserved answers. And perhaps, by keeping their story alive, we honor their memory. Rest in peace, Igor, Zinaida, Rustam, Yuri, Georgy, Alexander, Ludmila, Nikolai, and Semyon. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and whatever you do, never ever camp on Dead Mountain.